The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website.
Setting goals starts with evaluating the current situation. That applies to a city as well as our own personal goals. In terms of the city, a recent report called Lincoln Vital Signs tells us what's happening in Lincoln. From there, we go to Prosper Lincoln and setting some goals from the future. Stay tuned for an interesting discussion of what this report tells us about our community.
Hi everybody, welcome to Live and Learn. My name's Kim Hachia. Stay tuned because we're going to be talking about how fun it is to be outside and exercise and just enjoy life. Stay tuned, it's a good segment.
Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Wingle, Professor of Psychiatry, Assistant Vice Chancellor of Campus Wellness, and Geriatric Psychiatry Division Director with UNMC, is with us today to discuss various aspects of changes that occur as we age. He'll also talk about the focus on strategy for healthy brain aging. You won't want to miss this segment.
Good morning, I'm Barb Tyler. Today I'm going to be talking with Felicia Nelson, who is with the Nebraska Foster and Adoptive Parents Association of Nebraska. She'll tell us more about the kinship care program that's open to relatives of children that need foster care here in Nebraska.
This and more on today's Live and Learn.
Welcome to Live and Learn. Since 2014, the Lincoln Vital Signs has been an ongoing project conducted by the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center to take a pulse of what's happening in Lincoln. I'm Doug Jose, and it's a pleasure to have as my guest today Tracy Edgerton, who's president of the Lincoln Community Foundation, and Stacy Hoffman, who was the senior author of the recent Vital Signs report. Tracy, let's talk a little bit about the background of this report. It's been conducted, as I said, since 2014, but there's really two aspects of this. It's the report and then a project called Prosper Lincoln. Tell us about that.
Sure. No, happy to talk a little bit about that. I think that it was exciting about 10 years ago for the Lincoln Community Foundation to partner with the University of Nebraska Public Policy Center to highlight some information that we knew about our community, things that are really going well as some opportunities for improvement, opportunities to ensure that our entire community has the opportunity to grow and thrive right here at home, and to ensure that everyone's a part of that. And so we've been using the data of Lincoln Vital Signs to inform a community-wide agenda that we've called Prosper Lincoln. And within that agenda, we have some focus areas that have allowed us to dig deep and figure out how we can all work together to make our community stronger.
So who is involved in that Prosper Lincoln? Is that a community-wide aspect in terms of people getting involved?
Yes, it really is. We have partnered with other funders in our community, including the city and other folks who have invested in us in gathering and analyzing the data through the Public Policy Center. And then we've really leaned in with nonprofit partners, with these funders, and with other folks in our community to figure out how we can use this data and how we can make sure that those data points continue to go in the right direction and show opportunity and growth changing.
Let's talk about that, opportunities. Where is the focus presently headed?
Sure. Well, based on the most recent Lincoln Vital Signs, which was published earlier this year, we've really honed in on three areas of support and engagement across the community. And those areas are early childhood, broadly defined, not just education, but how we can ensure every child in our community has the opportunity to flourish. The second is housing. Affordable housing all the way up. We have a real housing crisis in our community as well as in others across the United States. And this allows us to build collaborating opportunities to figure out how we can crack that nut of ensuring that everyone in our community has a safe place to live. And then the third element is community connections. The data shows us that folks, children, especially who are in lower socioeconomic growth groups, the more they have the opportunity to connect with folks in other economic strata, the more they will have opportunities to gain connections, gain opportunities for economic mobility during their lifetime.
Let's move into some of the details, Stacy. The population of Lincoln is now about 300,000, and it seems like there are houses going up all over the city. But how does that relate to the age distributions of people in Lincoln?
We have had in Lincoln an average population growth of 1% per year over the past decade, but this does differ when we break out age groups. Our retirement age population, those 65 and over, have been growing far faster than any other age group in the city. What we see is that over the past decade, our retirement age population has grown a little over 4% per year, and other age groups have grown between 0.1% and 0.8% per year.
So that senior group that we're addressing is increasing in importance. Going back to your point, that's another group that we need to be focusing on.
That's right.
Let's talk a little bit more about that age group and how that's expanding. I noticed in the report that things like death rates from cancer and so on are declining, or at least are below national average. Does that mean that we're more healthy in Lincoln than other places, and that's why we're living longer?
We have seen lifespans increasing nationally for a while, at least partly due to advances in healthcare. In Lincoln, as you noted, we do have lower rates of death due to cancer and due to heart disease than the U.S. overall. However, our rates are increasing and getting closer to the national rates, so we're not doing quite as well in this area as we used to.
But other factors are contributing to that age group, maybe more people moving in to Lincoln in retirement? Or is that something that you have looked at or not have looked at?
We haven't looked at this specifically for Lincoln, which we are planning to dive into this topic more deeply. What I suspect is partly the aging of a generation that was quite a large in population. The baby boomers were quite a large generation.
Okay, so that's coming out at the distribution that we have now. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, from that, the well-being. Looking at the report, it seems like people feel pretty comfortable in Lincoln and where their living conditions and how safe they feel. Can you comment on that?
Sure. In terms of safety, we look at a survey published by the Lincoln Police Department annually, and this survey does include people who have been victims of crimes. What we have found, or what we see in this survey, is that those who say they always feel safe and secure has been increasing over time. So I believe the graph is being shown right now. The gray bar at the top is those who always feel safe and secure, and we can see that increase.
So that's something that we can be proud of in Lincoln, that it's a good environment. Stacy, when you mentioned earlier on about involving people in the community, and you itemized some goals, how do you move forward with those goals? What's the process that's going to be involved here?
So in terms of how the Prosper Lincoln Community Agenda is utilizing the data from Lincoln Vital Signs to really enhance our work as a community. One of the things that we're doing is really reaching out to lots of community groups, lots of different folks who are really invested in how we grow as a city. and helping them understand the data, having opportunities to share data points and share that information with them, and then talk about various efforts that are already happening in our community and how we can coalesce around those efforts to really make some great strides. The Community Foundation is really the backbone behind this work and really doing a lot to drive it forward. But then we're partnering with lots of folks in their areas of expertise to help move that forward. We have a steering group of a lot of community advisory folks who can help us figure out how to move forward and talk about early childhood, talk about our housing challenges across the spectrum, from senior housing all the way to workforce housing, and all the different ways that we can ensure that everyone has housing that's appropriate to their circumstances.
Stacy, you were the senior author of the recent report. Is there anything particular that stuck out to you in your mind when you were putting all of this data together that really struck you about Lincoln?
Really, some of the newer things we've touched on here today: the growing population of those 65 and older, our increasing rates of death to cancer and heart disease. One of the other things that we have seen consistently over the years is our crime rates are lower than other cities of the same size, so that contributes to Lincoln being a safe community. Those are really some of the highlights that stick out to me.
Yeah, we've just sort of touched the edge here of this report, but you go into employment and so on, what's happening with the employment and education levels in Lincoln, and those things are pretty positive as well.
Yes, that's for sure. I will say that one of the things that is really great where we're at is we have now been capturing this data for 10 years. And so now we have 10 years of information. We have evolved the information that we've looked at over time, but there's certain subsets of information that we can see the trend lines, and we can use those trend lines in that community engagement work to figure out where best to maximize our work.
Stacy, Tracy mentioned the trend lines. The report, I think, has a lot of graphs, but they're easy to understand. And how do people get a hold of this report and have a look at it?
Oh, sure. The best way would be to go to our website at lincolnvitalsigns.org. The website contains interactive graphs for all of the recent data, as well as downloadable versions of all reports since 2014.
Yeah, graphs might be something that people don't really relate to, but I think the graphs like the one we showed are easy to understand and really get a feel for what's happening in Lincoln. And Tracy, we'll look forward to hearing more about this as we go forward. And people can get involved in this if they want to be involved in some of the things that you mentioned. Absolutely.
We would welcome the community to become a little bit more engaged. We also have a different website that puts together the Prosper Lincoln information. That's at prosperlincoln.org. And that will highlight a lot of different ways to get involved, talk specifically about those 3 areas of influence that are really shaped by the background information of Lincoln Vital Signs, show how we're flourishing, show where some weaknesses persist and what we can do about them.
This is very interesting, and I appreciate both of you visiting with us today, so thanks for being here and telling us about what we can look forward to hearing about in the future with Prosper Lincoln.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, it's never too late to live and learn about the pulse rate of Lincoln and what the opportunities are for our community.
My kid has been asking for this hot new gaming thing, and I was like, okay, he had a birthday coming up anyway. So I finally find the video game online, in stock. Thing is, it was from this shoddy website full of typos. That's when I remembered a tip I got from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Bogus website? This is a shopping scam. Got us matching t-shirts instead.
Recognize fraud sooner.
He loves his.
So your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Hi everybody, welcome to Live and Learn. My name's Kim Hachia. I want to, as usual, thank our friends at LNK TV and Aging Partners for producing the show. They do such a great job, and we could not put the show on the road or on the air without them, so thank you very much. My guest today is sort of a longtime Lincoln fixture. I think of her as the ambassador to fitness and sort of the queen of the running community here in Lincoln, and she's going to laugh about that, but she really, and I've known Ann for probably almost 40 years now, which is weird because we were like, 2 when we met. And so sometimes she doesn't like to be front and center and in the spotlight, so I really am glad that Ann agreed to come to the show today, and we're going to talk a little bit. Ann, tell me about how you got into fitness, because you and I are kind of the age that in high school or even younger, there weren't a lot of opportunities for women, and
not at all.
And everybody thought running would, kill us.
Yes, exactly. They did, definitely. I just loved being outside. In fact, when going through my parents' stuff, my brother sent me a picture, and it was of me when I was maybe 6 months old in like a swing or something outside, and on the back my mom had written Ann, where she loves to be most of the time outside. So I think it was just because I liked being outside. So, when you were little, you ran up and down the alleys. We lived in a small town. I'm from Red Cloud. And you just ran everywhere or rode your bikes. Someone said to me one day, "Did you wear a helmet when you were little?" I'm like, "Helmet? I didn't. I had a swimsuit on, a towel around my neck, and barefoot." That's how you rode your bike in the summer, right? You didn't know. But now definitely wear a helmet. But just being outside. And then we did have volleyball. Title IX, I think when I was a sophomore, maybe going into my junior year, Title IX happened. I believe my junior year, we realized we had volleyball, so we could play volleyball, which I was horrible at, and I was very tiny in high school, and the only uniform they had for me was a dress. It was an old one, and it had little shorts under it, and it was horrendous, and that ruined me on volleyball. I was not going to wear that when everybody else had it, shorts and stuff on. But anyway, I can remember we found out we could have track, and so a couple of us, Connie Miner, who went on to be an amazing athlete and coach in her career, she and I and probably a couple others went into the principal and said, "Hey, we want a girls' track team." And I have this vision of him, and I'm sure he wasn't, but I have this vision of him with the glasses down his nose. I know his arms were crossed because that was it, and having this look on his face, and my vision is also his feet were on the desk, but I don't think that was true. But that looked at us and said, "Well, you find a coach and you can have track." So man, we beat it out that, and everybody, asked the janitors, asked the teachers, nobody, I think most said, "I'm not qualified, I can't coach track," and we couldn't find anybody. So we started thinking about parents, and we had a superintendent that had come in at semester. He was a retired school administrator. I think he'd been there years before, Mr. Borton. He was awesome. He came up and he said, "I'll do it." He's probably in his 70s, I think. And we're like, "Okay, we have somebody." We didn't care if he knew anything. Well, come to find out, he knew a lot. And the biggest thing was he cared. He really cared about us. And so he rode the bus with us. He was our chaperone. I think he was our pep club chaperone too. I mean, things that nobody would do, he would do.
Right.
So, but he kind of got us going a little bit. But you're right, we couldn't run more than a half mile. And so that was my forte, was a half mile, which was not my distance. And he realized that too, because I can remember him saying to me, "Farabee, run to the river bridge and back." And I think it was so cool that he would let me go out and run, and it probably was maybe 2 miles, probably not.
Because half mile is like an 880, right?
And
880. And that's just like basically a dead sprint.
Yeah. He taught, and he would say, "Go out easy, then pick it up in the middle, and then finish really hard." And I would try to do that, and there was no hard finish for me at all.
That's a warm up.
Yeah, it is. And I did, my mom sent me results one year from the paper. It was like 20, 40, whatever years ago. I was on a 4x200 meter relay. I'm like, they must have been really desperate. I mean, I could run, but I was not fast. But he instilled in me that, he believed in me that I could do more. And the thing that is probably more telling than anything about me at that point, I loved to run, but I also didn't want to be a nerd. So he came up to me and he said, "I think you should do cross country." I'm like, "Okay," and I don't know what it is. What is it? And he explained it to me, and it sounded really fun. You're out in the fields, you're in the country, you just run. There's not, you know, you're not on a track. And it sounded great. And I'm like, okay, who's on the team? And he's like, you. I'm like, okay. Who's the coach? And he goes, me. I'm like, all right. And then how do I get to meets? And he said, well, I would drive you. And right away, I'm like, I mean, I love the man, but I'm like, man, this just doesn't sound like something I should, I don't know. They think I'm weird anyway. They're going to really think I'm weird. So I did not do it because I was more concerned about how I appeared than what I really wanted to do. So I justify it in my mind now saying, I'm still running. I'm 68 years old and I can still run. And I might not had I done cross country and excelled at it and maybe ran in college and maybe.
But you're kind of carrying on his tradition because you have been a coach.
Yes. Yep.
And you're kind of were you coach for?
Yeah, I still do.
Beginner's
I
Luck
feel like,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
other things that
and,
you've
yes,
started
and have a
in.
couple classes through the
Yeah.
store, right? And then my friends, they tease me. They tell me, I tease them. They always want papers. Like I want to do the Chicago Marathon. Can I get papers? So I write them out schedules, and so I still do because I love doing that.
Right.
I feel like I started running because I was good at it, right? And that builds in it. You love to do things that you're good at, right? It kind of encourages you, and you like something that you get awards for, or people recognize you for. And so I did it for a long time. I loved it too, but I liked that definitely.
Right.
And then it's become now where I feel like I can help people. I mean, I don't know everything, but I know enough that I can, help people get started or move on a little further, or maybe a little more serious about it, and be able to maybe achieve some goals that they want to do. And then it's fun when you find somebody that actually didn't know they could run and they really can.
Right.
And they're good at this. And you
And
figure
it's-
out where it is that they're good.
And although you love running, and you're the ambassador and the prophet of running, but for you it's also just getting people out and moving.
Absolutely.
And why do you think that's important?
Why
do people our age, why do we need to be doing that?
Absolutely. Well, one is community is huge. I mean, not just for our bodies. I tell the people that I run with and the guys at the bridge who we've talked about a little bit before, you and I, it does more for here, or as much for here as it does for here. It just makes you feel really, really good about yourself. There's nothing, even people that think they hate running, I guarantee you, or just really don't like it, that if they're in beginner's luck, when they get done, they're just on a little high. It just makes them feel good for doing what they just did themselves. Nobody could help them with it. I mean, really, they had to show up and they had to go out and they had to do it. So,
well, there's the sense of accomplishment
Right.
of actually finishing something
Right,
that maybe
empowered.
you didn't think you could do.
no, yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how fast. It doesn't matter, really even how far. Just something that's hard for you, or just a goal for you that you accomplished it. Absolutely, there's something that is empowering, and it makes you feel so good about yourself. And if you can people feel better about themselves. I mean, it really does help people to grow too. I mean, I've just watched people change, and it's just fun.
Yeah. And the thing you talked about, the community, there's a pretty, well, I've never lived really anywhere else, so
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I feel like Lincoln has a pretty tight running community. People tend to know each other.
Absolutely.
We're lucky because we have such a great trail system that helps people.
Oh my
you know.
gosh, it's wonderful. 180 some miles or whatever trails, it's amazing. And it makes sure too that everybody gets a trail map. In any of my classes, that's the first thing I do is give them a GPTN trail map, because they don't even know they live close to a trail.
Right.
And that is so, I mean, if you just have something like that out your back door and you don't know it, you can get out and it just makes it so much easier, than a sidewalk or a park or something that's maybe not as open and as welcoming, and it really makes a difference.
Well, and the other
We're
thing
so
about
lucky.
You and I have talked about the whole, and you said you liked being outside, you like the whole
Right.
concept of nature. And
We talked,
The trail that I'm on mostly is the Rock Island, which goes through a lot of parks and everything, but we see foxes.
Yes.
I have, a couple of years ago when we were coming in from one of the Beginner's Luck walks,
Yes.
we saw deer.
Yes, on 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
And
can
we should
see
say
it.
that Beginner's Luck is a class that Ann started, 22
22
years
years
ago. It's a summer class,
Yeah.
and to introduce people to the sport of running and,
Yep.
and recreational running so much,
Yeah.
not so much the,
No, but they, some
Yeah.
people carry on, and
Right.
I mean, I had a volunteer, or a lady that's volunteering this year, and she took it last year for the first time. She said, I don't think I'm experienced enough to be a volunteer. I'm like, you're exactly what we need. Somebody who really remembers what it was like to start. Because there's so much I've probably forgotten about
Right.
starting and how it really feels, but you can talk to them and say, yeah,
Right.
it'll pass, it'll pass,
it's
this will
fun.
pass.
And,
Yeah.
and it is fun. And
It
and
is.
It's low stress and
Yes.
and
Yes.
low, I don't
I
know.
hope so.
Low
stress.
interest, low bar, but
Yep. Yep.
A lot of satisfaction at the end.
No, yeah, and just
Yeah.
the volunteers that are there to help you through it, and yeah, they're an exceptional group.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So we talked a little bit about your work at the Bridge.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What is
okay.
the Bridge, and
The
what
Bridge
are you
is
doing
a behavioral addiction center, and probably 10 years ago almost, F Street Rec Center was involved with it because they gotten a grant to do this, and so I had given them shoes. Mary Johnson had contacted me and said, "Can I get shoes from you?" And I'm like, "Sure." And they're not brand new shoes. Some of them are pretty brand new, but they're always shoes that someone has returned or people donate to us for this cause now.
Right.
But it was returned for one reason or another. Nothing's really wrong with them. They usually didn't work for the person. Excuse me. So they're just, it's not brand new, but they're really nice. And, some of these guys come with nothing. So a pair of shoes is just awesome. And she had me come over because they were going to, I think the paper was doing a story on it or something. She said, "Do you want to come and see, what it's like, what it's about?" Because up until then, I'd just given shoes. And from that day on, I ran with them, and I'm like, I'm back. I'm doing this. And then F Street didn't get the grant the next few years, but I'm like, I got people that'll show up to run with us. I mean, that's not a big deal. I'll be here as much as I can, and so now I had this morning there were just 2 of us, but usually there's 4 of us that run with them. And it's usually, not everybody that's there runs, but I get them all shoes so they can walk at least and be comfortable. And we do a 2-mile route every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8:15 to almost 9. And it makes a huge difference. And if one of them has changed over these years, which they have, there's been several that have gone on and stayed running and done really well. They have a market-to-market team, alumni.
Wow.
And they had alumni. They had people at the Bridge had a team at Havelock. And right away this morning, they're like, "When's the next event that we can run in?" I'm like, "Well, there's a mile, and there's a Husker Run."
Husker Run.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they are all in, and so is the director, Ed Thornburg, is a director of the Bridge, and he is all in. He's like, I think there's a grant I can apply for to help and just put the Bridge runners as what it's going to go
Right.
for. So we're very excited about that. I don't, he hasn't applied yet, but that would be something. But otherwise, I can just call some friends, get scholarships for them. They'll pay their entry fee, or I pay their entry fee. It's really, really good for them. They always do the turkey trot, and they love that. They absolutely love it. I mean, a couple years ago, one of them, it was an older gentleman, he just volunteered at it, but he stood there by me and he cheered for them, and he just would say what I say. I could hear him, and he would repeat what I had said, to the runners as they went by, and happy holidays. And then the next day was Friday. No, that same day, they had a dinner. And then on Friday we went to run, and he came up to me and he said, "Yesterday was the best day I've had in years.
Wow.
I got to go help, be around people, and volunteer." And then his daughter came for Thanksgiving dinner. And he's like, "It was the best day I've ever had."
Yeah.
And so you realize you take so many things for granted, like go to a race, it's not that big a deal. Or some people think, "Oh, I volunteered, I have to volunteer." They loved it. I mean, it opens your eyes to a whole different way of looking at things.
Yeah, I've always, I used to do the half, but now I volunteer.
Yes. Yes.
Help with the aid station
Yes.
at mile 8. But what I like about it is it's like 8,000 really. Sometimes they're struggling, but a lot of really happy people are running by you. And it's just a good experience.
No, it is. They're happy people. That's right.
Yeah,
Nobody.
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Turkey Trot is definitely the most happy place ever.
We are out of time. And
Okay.
I told you it would go fast.
Yes, it
and
does.
You and I could have talked
Talk
for
forever.
because we have. And so I want to really thank you for being here,
Yes.
Ann. You've just made my day.
Good. You
And
always make
yeah.
mine.
Oh, well, thanks.
Definitely.
And I want to remind our viewers that it's never too late to live and learn about experience being outside.
So, I'm playing with the dog, and I get this robocall from the Social Security Administration saying my card had been suspended and I had to call them back immediately. And that's when I remembered a tip from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Random robocall? This is a Social Security scam.
Recognize fraud sooner,
Robots.
so your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Masters. We are in a store for a great discussion with our guest today, Dr. Steve Wingle. Dr. Wingle is a professor of psychiatry. He's also the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Campus Wellness and also the Geriatric Psychiatry Division Director with UNMC. Welcome, Dr. Wingle.
Great to be here, Julie. Thanks so much for this opportunity.
Well, we're very grateful that you would take some time out of your schedule to join us in Lincoln. Dr. Wingle, you have this amazing background. Could you share with our viewers a little bit about your education and how you decided to pursue a career in geriatric psychiatry?
Well, you know, I'm incredibly blessed, and I'm a proud product of the University of Nebraska system. You know, went to UNL, came back to Omaha, where I'm from, to go to medical school, stayed there for psychiatry training, and then I had a great mentor who convinced me to become a geriatric psychiatrist, so I got some training in that there too, and then I've been on the faculty since '91. So really, like I say, I consider myself incredibly blessed and lucky.
Well, whoever your mentor was, we have to thank that person.
Yeah, our friend Bill Burke, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Burke, also an amazing individual, psychiatrist, researcher, and so forth, but grateful that you took his advice and decided to pursue this career. So, Dr. Wingle, you've presented on the challenges faced by people as they age, things such as dementia, delirium, depression. Could you talk a little bit about these three and how they're diagnosed, and then also how they're treated?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk about the 3 Ds that you've alluded to that are really, really common issues as we age. You know, depression, I think most people have a sense of what depression is, but the illness, the actual diagnosis of major depression is a little different than the blues that we all get from time to time. It's a persistent sense of sadness, loss of interest in your usual activities, usually accompanied by changes in sleep and appetite and so forth. And it goes on for at least 2 weeks. And oftentimes by the time I see people, it's been going on for weeks or months. So it's a pretty miserable thing, but it's a very, very treatable, miserable thing, I guess I would say, in this modern era. We've got lots of really good, effective treatments for it. Delirium, on the other hand, is more of a kind of a cognitive problem. It's a memory problem and a problem with perception. It's another way of looking at it is a temporary form of confusion, I guess, for want of a better term.
Okay.
Often happens when people are physically sick, like in the hospital, people that are just had an operation, people that have an infection they're being treated for, that sort of thing. And again, temporary problem, but while people have it, it's pretty distressing to them and to their loved ones because they may not know what day it is or what month it is or where they're at, and they may have hallucinations and things like that. So it's a distressing condition, but again, it's a temporary condition, thankfully. Now, contrast those two conditions with dementia, which is a more permanent problem, as we know. And people sometimes ask, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? And it turns out Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, so it's not an either-or kind of thing. But you know, dementia of any kind is typically a permanent form of cognitive dysfunction, where people have memory problems. They may have, you know, other associated problems, trouble with word finding, and a variety of other things.
Do you find that, you know, when people, whether it's depression or delirium, that they may be concerned that it is dementia?
Yeah, that's a really good point, that either of those two conditions, depression or delirium, can produce cognitive changes, especially memory changes. Every week I see at least 1 or 2 of my patients that have a severe form of depression that we're just in the process of starting to treat. But they often feel like they worry that they might have Alzheimer's disease because they're forgetful. But we treat the depression and their memory gets a lot better. Same with delirium. Again, it's a temporary problem. And once it gets better, you know, their memory generally comes back to where it was before.
I suspect that when people feel that sense of relief and their memory is restored or returns, that they have that feeling of, gosh, I wish I would have done something about this sooner.
Yeah, that's often the case. That's right. Because, we're human beings and we naturally, kind of hope things will just sort of get better on their own. And they often, do not come to see us as soon as maybe they could.
So, it leads to another question, and that is, if a family member should see that people are having some problems thinking, having some problems with memory and so forth, what might be some options that could be available for them?
Yeah.
Where can they go?
Yeah, I always tell people the first step is usually your primary care provider. That hopefully they have one, because they know the person hopefully, and they can kind of tell whether this is a significant change from their baseline. And oftentimes primary care providers, physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, can do a lot of the initial evaluation, like to make sure that it isn't a simple vitamin deficiency or low sodium or some of these other common medical problems. They know all that stuff. And so that's usually a great place to start. If you need something more intensive or more comprehensive, there are several really good geriatric assessment programs around the state. There's, I think, good ones here in Lincoln. I'm more familiar with the ones in Omaha because that's where I practice, but there are a number of opportunities where people can get a really comprehensive assessment of their physical health, their emotional health, their cognitive health, and so forth. And again, primary care docs or primary care providers typically kind of know what those resources are.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. We're always trying to get that word out. But yeah.
So I know our viewers will be able to see an image of the Home Instead Center for Successful Aging building. And that's where you're located, but also where geriatric assessment takes place.
That's right. Yeah, it's a really, again, we're super fortunate to work in this unique setting, and it's a combined effort of geriatric psychiatry, my discipline, and geriatric medicine, which is part of the internal medicine department, and we work together. And it's a very accessible building for older adults that may have mobility challenges and so forth. So it's a really, again, really blessed to be able to work in such a setting.
It's a beautiful space.
Yeah.
One of the things, Dr. Wingle, that I think, when people hear you speak around the community and the state and so forth, is your attention not only to disease, but to wellness. And this idea that, there's things that we can do to really enhance, for instance, brain functioning. Can you talk about healthy brain aging? What does that look like? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for that opportunity. This, it's kind of interesting. Medicine, traditional medicine is focused on disease and pathology and so forth. And I think there's this movement now afoot, clearly there is, where, we can say, can we do more? Can we prevent problems, especially brain aging? When I was in medical school way back in the 80s, we were kind of taught that as the brain ages, as the body ages, there's this normal deterioration, can't really do anything about it. The brain's going to shrink, we're going to lose neurons and so forth. And while that's still sort of true, that it's sort of not true too. There are parts of the brain where you actually make new neurons even later in life, like the hippocampus, which is the short-term memory part of the brain. But you have to do some things to kind of support that, I think.
What would that look like?
Yeah. So I tell people, I sometimes use, so we talk about the 3 Ds, of which are kind of diseases, but what about the 3 Rs of healthy brain aging? So routines, getting enough sleep, that's super important because sleep is when your brain takes out the trash, I say, gets rid of toxins. Getting exercise, healthy diet and so forth, so that's routines. Relationships would be a second R, because social connection is really important. And then the last one is reflection or relaxation. There's really good evidence that people that meditate regularly, for example, may preserve brain health better than people that don't meditate, for example.
Wow, that's wonderful. So the 3 Rs, in addition to the 3 Ds, now you've got the 3 Rs for us.
There you go.
Thank you. So in addition to thinking about wellness, one of the things also that you're really good talking about is this idea of creativity as a way to relieve stress and quality of life. What would you like our viewers to know about?
Well, this is a new area for me. It's not a new area for artists and other creative people that have known for a long time that we all have this innate desire to express ourselves in different ways, but it's kind of a new area for me, and it's really interesting. There's data now showing that People in healthcare or medical students, for example, that engage in the arts and humanities score higher on empathy scores, and they have less burnout, for example. So that's become a new focus for me, is kind of helping people tap into that creative side, whether it's reading poetry, writing poetry, the visual arts, music, whatever it is. Everybody's different in terms of what they like, but I really encourage people to find that creative side of them and engage it.
Well, I know there was Gene Cohen, who is no longer living, but a physician who talked about creativity and aging, and that's something that really can be further developed if given the opportunity.
Yeah, and there's actually cases of people that developed a new creative muse, I guess I'd say, like painting or something like that in late life. So it's never too late, I guess, right? That's part of the message here.
Well, we can only think about Grandma Moses. And her willingness to express herself. So, Steve, a question I ask of most of our guests, what gives you hope?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think, family, friends, faith, and the next generation too. I'm lucky enough to work in a university setting where I get to see the next generation, whether it's medical students or nursing students or psychiatry residents. And I'd say the future is in good hands, at least in healthcare, because we have such dedicated and caring young folks that are carrying the torch here forward.
That's good to hear. And just a reminder about those 3 R's: routine, relationships and reflection.
Yes.
And reflection. Thank you for those. Well, Steve, it has just been such a great, Dr. Wingle, pardon me, it has been such a great pleasure to have you join us and to educate our viewers. And to our viewers, remember, it is never too late to live and learn.
I was doing some shopping and got a pop-up on my laptop. Computer had a virus. So I called the number on the page, and the guy on the phone wants to take control of my screen to sort it out. Then I remember a tip I got from the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Control my screen. This is a tech support scam. Thankfully, my order still went through.
Recognize fraud sooner so your money lives longer. The younger you are, the more you need AARP.
Did you know that in Nebraska, over 4,100 children are in foster care? And that was as the end of March of this year. And the average range of age is from 5 to 12 years old. We are fortunate in our state to have a kinship foster care program that will be in our conversation today. Hi, I'm Barb Tyler, and I'll be talking with Felicia Nelson. Felicia, can you give a general idea of how Nebraska's foster care program is set up, and what do you do within the program?
Well, the Nebraska foster care program is really dedicated to safety, permanence, and overall well-being of these children that are, being removed from home due to various challenges. And so what happens is the Department of Health and Human Services, foster care agencies, lots of other organizations, plus the foster families are really collaborating and really helping these kids in need.
So you train these foster care I'll call them parents, foster care families and parents, or do they just reach out that they want to help? How does that interaction start?
I get a phone call. And so I want to make sure I'm answering your specific questions and hopefully then get you started on that journey, whether you're going to license directly with the state or with a foster agency, and it really depends on where you live in the state. And so that's important.
So they have to be a licensed home to do this? They have to go through some sort of training?
They do. They go through training to be a licensed foster parent. If we're looking at a kinship and relative, it is slightly different. They have streamlined the process a lot more to become an approved home for those kinship and relatives because, they've got the knock on the door and saying, hey, these kids need a placement today. Yeah.
So is a family too small, too big? Are they determined? Is there any set of rules for the family to become one?
Yes. But they do make exceptions for kinship and relative.
Okay.
But yes, 6 kids. If we've got 2 couples, again, depending on the age. And your kids take up those spots too. So if you already have 2 children and just say you're licensed for 4, that means you can accept 2 more children.
So a single person, could they become a foster?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
a single first foster parent myself.
Okay.
So I encourage. We need single parents. We need married couples. Maybe you have a unique situation. There is no one size fits all foster parent.
Okay. So you mentioned the kinship program. So I know there's, just from my experience, there's different kinds of foster programs. But this kinship care program, I think, is kind of unique to Nebraska, or it was unique when it started. Tell us exactly what that means, the kinship care.
Kinship care? So we're looking at relatives, so a family member, to have children placed with them. We're also looking at kinship, which is a trusted adult, but they're not a family member.
So the child knows this person.
They knows, yeah, or the family knows them, yes.
So on all these types have to be licensed,
They
even if they're related?
Well, the relative and kinship, they can be approved. I would encourage them to get licensed because you know what? We need foster parents. And if you're willing to help your family and then they go back home, you know what? Let's turn around and see if you can help another child that you may not know, but you'll need to be licensed for that.
So I would imagine going to someplace they know is a little more, there's more ease in the transition somewhat. But I would imagine too that, say grandma lives out of town and you have, the kids have to go out of town, you know, that's still tough, even though it might be a stable environment. They know they're there with grandma, but it's not their neighborhood. So what are some of the challenges that you find with the kinship care program?
Well, challenges, you know, you're not prepared to be a foster parent. You know, you aren't, you know, deciding to get licensed, which takes about 4 to 6 months.
Oh, really?
To get licensed as a foster parent. You know, we've got this child who needs immediate placement that you know. And then this affects them too because they're getting removed from home. They're getting removed from their neighborhood, possibly from their school if they're out of town. And you know, we're going to be taking that into effect when they do placement. But we have to see what is the overall benefit that we can meet the needs of that child.
So what kind of support does your program, or kinship care, foster care of you know, your national, your state association, what kind of support does it give to that family?
So we have, if you're wanting to be licensed, we can certainly do a pre-service training to get you started on that licensing process. That takes about 21 to 30 hours of training.
But what do you teach? I'll
oh,
say teach.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, we teach a lot about loss and grief, trauma, understanding, you know, where these kids are coming from and looking at what their needs are, but also the needs of the parent too. Because I encourage them to get connected with the family right away because that actually helps better with reunification and overall long-term goal.
So when I was kind of doing some research on this, they say that there's 2.6 placements for Nebraska children are in home care. And it goes up as the child gets older. And teens, 13 to 19, average 4 placements while in foster care. They keep getting moved around. So I would imagine in the kinship program where at least they know, have some comfort, it would reduce the trauma. You wouldn't maybe be so upset that you'd run away. You'd maybe stay with the family.
That is the goal, is to help reduce some of that, have that stability, reduce that trauma. But you know, again, getting them their resources in order to help with that child that they have in their home.
So is there financial assistance to these foster families as well?
Yes, Nebraska is one of those states. I mean, you'd be surprised, but they stepped up and made sure that these kinship and relative placements were getting the assistance they need just like their counterparts. Financial assistance, benefits, things like that. Unlike other states, Nebraska realized how important that was to make sure that they are getting those resources in order to provide a really safe environment for those kids.
So do these foster families then, I suppose it's on a case-to-case basis, are they considered legal guardians?
No, the state is the legal guardian.
The state is the legal guardian, okay. So you said reunification is the ultimate goal, but there's other discharge regions, and I guess the one I became kind of fascinated with as they age out of the system, and I'm kind of throwing this at you, but what happens after they do age out? What are there resources available to them, or do they get into another program, or?
Depends on what we're looking at. So did they go with transition into independent living, hopefully, or they, again, may be aging out, but hopefully we're going to be looking at maybe going to Bridge to Independence so that they can have some more support. And, you know, because at 19, you know, there is a difference.
So 19, well, thinking back, my kids are pretty good at 19, but they weren't ready to make life decisions at that point. So is there an age that maybe is too old for adoption? Can kids be adopted? I know, of course, everybody, it seems to me, I read that people want younger kids, but as they get older, I imagine adoption's harder. Can you adopt a kid at 17, 18?
So yeah, you can adopt at 17, yes. And that's what we want. We want these kids, if they can't return back home, they deserve a family. Whether it's going to be adoption or even guardianship, which again ends at 19, but at least you know that you still have a family to go to for Thanksgiving or someone to call just when you need it.
So, and then emancipation, I don't know, what does that mean when it comes to the foster? I mean, I know it's not really aging out, or they're just free to live their life, or?
Right, so emancipation is more, you know, you have to prove that you can be taking care of yourself.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know a whole lot about that because again, I'm a proponent of these kids need a family. Not that we are eliminating their birth family, because really when we're doing adoption and guardianship, you know, we're blending families together.
So at what point, say a child has been in a foster care family for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, and I know that can happen.
It can happen.
So does a foster care family ever become a guardian, or do they apply to do that, or do the parents finally just say, you know, they're doing so well in the foster home, you can have responsibility for it?
So they can do guardianship because then the state steps out, but they become wards of the court.
Wards of the court. And what's the difference there?
Well, you're no longer having that caseworker and assistance through that.
No financial assistance after that?
There is with guardianship if there were foster children, but we can, again, it's another permanency option for them. And it doesn't mean that rights are terminated for the parents when we're looking at guardianship.
So you always, you know, you said reunification is the ultimate goal. And do you see the foster family working with the birth parents at all? Is it like an open adoption, or how does that relationship, is there a relationship, I guess?
We're hoping.
Okay.
We want, you know, back when I first started fostering many moons ago, you know, I was more than open to work with birth family. It wasn't quite common then, but now it is. We want these foster families to step up, you know, especially if you're not kinship and relative, and introduce yourself to these parents. Because if my child was in foster care, I want to know where my child's at, that they're in a safe place.
So if in the kinship care program or kinship program, is there a certain age? Can grandma be too old? Can an aunt be too young? I mean, is there a kind of a sweet spot, or too young, too old? I mean, I would imagine that care provider would have to be able to provide the care.
Yes.
Is that the only qualification?
Right. They have to be 19.
Oh, okay.
You know, because Nebraska is that, or with this state. But there is no age restriction. But yes, you do have to be able to take care of the child. Yeah.
And so that financial support, that can go for, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like gasoline to take the car to wherever they need. Is that after school activities, sports activities to help? Is that, or is it just mainly daily living support, financial support?
So they get a subsidy.
Okay.
And so
they can use it any way they want?
Yeah, so, you know, help with, you know, when I look at
Groceries.
room and board, you know, and groceries is enough, let alone maybe even diapers sometimes. But yes, to help. It's not going to cover everything.
No.
But it is to help with that and help the child.
So that subsidy would be based on the number of children, and it probably, the state knows what the needs. This one, diapers are expensive, but this one needs a lot of food, you know.
Right.
So it's kind of based on it.
They've actually calculated it out and taken, you know, what is the surrounding states? Are you in an urban or a rural location? They've taken all that in. It's actually the foster care review, not the foster care review office, I do apologize. The rate committee, the foster rate committee under the Nebraska Children's Commission that is helping with determining those rates.
So I guess I'm going to. Is there anything else we should talk about? But you had mentioned real quickly about where you live in Nebraska. That can depend on support or services.
Support and yes, because if you're in Omaha, there's a lot of support and services versus if you're I don't know in McCook, Nebraska. So you may have to travel 1 to 2 hours to get to the therapist, but it doesn't mean there's an opening. So yes,
and Medicaid's going through all that. So
yes.
Anything else we should talk about? I know you've been there for a while and you've probably seen it all.
Yeah.
I think what you do is really important because foster care is just it's needed. There's a lot of young adults are just struggling. They have these children and they want what's best for them, I imagine. So
I would love to be out of a job if there are no foster kids, but right now that is not what is going. So I want to get those calls. I want to get those questions answered specifically for your family, and hopefully then become a foster parent.
Well, I think they're going to put the phone number up so people can call about this program. So thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate it. It's always good to learn about a new program and one that's really is needed. So thank you for being a part of Live and Learn today. And as always, it's never too late to live and learn. Thank you.